episode 16 for June 2023. Don't Mess with the Boss Cat by Nikki Knight. Hello and welcome to CatsCast, your monthly feline fiction podcast. I'm your editor and host, Laura Pearlman. This month, I'm happy to bring you Don't Mess with the Boss Cat by Nikki Knight. This story is a CatsCast original. Our author this week is Nikki Knight. Nikki Knight describes herself as an author, anchor, mom, not in that order. An award-winning weekend anchor at New York City's 1010 WINS radio, she writes short stories and novels. Her stories have appeared in Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine, online, and in anthologies including Deadly Nightshade, Best New England Crime Stories 2022, and have been shortlisted for Derringer and Black Orchid Novella Awards. The Vermont radio mystery Live, Local, and Dead, featuring Neptune's Ma, Jay Jordan, is available from Crooked Lane Books. Nikki, her husband, and son live in a Connecticut house owned by their cat. Our narrator this week is Dave Robison. Dave is a voice actor, audio producer, storyteller, and creative dilettante who has produced writing podcasts, created storytelling software, and launched zombie-themed coffee companies. With this story, he can proudly say he has read for every escape artist fiction podcast in existence. Laura here. We don't really have an official way of marking this occasion. Escape Artist has a set of official achievements, including Storyteller for a person who's narrated all 4 weekly podcasts. Those were all created long before CatsCast came to be, so there isn't an official name for someone who's narrated all 5. We need to get those updated, and please feel free to send in suggestions for cat-friendly names. But in the meantime, I hereby declare that Dave is a teller of tales, although the name is subject to change, especially since I keep waffling on how to spell tails. Anyway, back to Dave. Although Dave is currently without feline companionship, he has deeply fond memories of a tough stand-up guy of a cat, a gray much like Neptune from this story, named Shadow, who would sit on Dave's chest each night as he'd drift off to sleep, warding off nightmares and generally holding him down so he didn't drift away in his sleep. Now take a seat in the window and listen closely, because there's something we need to tell you.
Don't Mess with the Boss Cat, a Vermont radio story by Nikki Knight. Read by Dave Robison. I didn't want to become the boss cat at some radio station in the middle of nowhere. And I definitely didn't want to have to kill some fool. But you mess with my family, you mess with me. See, it's all that guy's fault. He ran out and broke Ma's heart and made her pack up me and my girl and leave our comfy apartment. That mope's wandering eye cost me my great big window and all those nice noisy birds. I'm Neptune, by the way. My vet forms say Neptune Metz, gray short-hair cat, breed unknown, and make some truly insulting comments about my size. I never used that guy's name anyway, and I think of myself as a big gray cat from the Bronx. Ma and my girl took me home when I was small. Some cops from the precinct house found me and a bunch of other street kittens huddling in the alley and brought us to the shelter, which was loud and kind of scary, but at least warm. I wasn't wild about people coming to stare at us, but okay. More than okay when I saw this big black-haired woman walk in holding hands with a smaller one. Them I liked. Of course, I had to reach out and smack the big one on the arm to get her attention, and when she laughed, I knew she was going to be cool. And then the little girl with her looked up at me. My girl. 'Nuff said. Every once in a while, that guy used to remind Ma that he's not a cat person, but he likes me. Good for him. I'm not a that guy cat. I know a stand-up guy when I see one, and he ain't it. Yes, he always treats my girl right, which is the only reason he didn't wake up some morning with a claw through the neck. But otherwise, he's not worth much. Ma, though, she's pretty good. Keeps me in treats, never bothers me when I'm napping, doesn't have to be reminded to clean the litter, even gives a decent ear scratch when I'm in the mood for that. Everything was pretty good until that guy ruined it. It's his damn fault I ended up in this ugly, smelly, loud new place. I think I knew Ma was a DJ before, but I didn't realize what it meant. Apparently, it has something to do with that screeching she plays in the car and the shelves of shiny circles in the basement of our new house, which is not a house at all, but something called a radio station. Can't prove it by me. It's a pretty good-sized place, with our apartment on the top and the studio in the basement. The 2 floors in between are pretty much empty. I will admit that I enjoy the occasional run on the steps, and it's always good to have hidey spots. I guess a lot of other folks worked there at one time, and I'm always finding interesting little things they forgot. I had a whole afternoon of fun after I knocked a cup of old pens off one of the desks. Ma doesn't really like it when I disappear, but it's not her call. She says I'm the boss cat and thinks she's kidding. Ah! Anyhow, as far as I can tell, people are apparently going to pay Ma to play the screeching because they like it. You humans are weird. I don't really care as long as she keeps the tuna crunchy treats coming. The screeching is better than what we had at the beginning, for sure. I spent most of the first week hiding out in the front window, partly to menace the new birds, and partly because the curtains blocked out the yelling. The new birds are pretty cool, and the pickup trucks and SUVs are fun to watch, even if they move a lot faster than the cars on the street back home. It's kind of fun to watch people dash across the road, too. The yelling wasn't as much fun. Yelling seemed to be all anyone was doing on the radio. One cranky old guy after another, morning to night, every one of them mad about something. Don't ask me. Sounded like what happened when Ma's uncle found out that guy was breaking up with her and called him. At least Uncle is a stand-up guy, and he had a reason to be angry. These dudes don't think so. So Ma made them go away. And that's when the real trouble started. We were downstairs in the studio that evening, and I was in my nice warm spot on the cabinet behind Ma, who was at the big table with all the buttons, looking at those shiny discs again. My girl was reading some book for school. Whatever angry old guy it was had started a new rant about illegals, which, as far as I can tell, is some kind of person he didn't like. Don't know, don't care. I know Ma would never refer to another human that way. Well, folks, I think we're done here. She grinned at me and my girl as she held up one of those shiny circles. Anyone in the mood for a little Despacito? Yes! My girl put down her book and clapped her hands. In Spanish, of course? My girl laughed. Ma hit the song, and the litter hit the fan. For a moment, it was just fun. My girl and Ma were bopping around to the beat, and I was waving my tail in time, even though I really prefer Sinatra. Then the light on the wall started blinking, and kept blinking. Ma picked up the phone, and there was yelling, just like the guy she'd cut off. Sorry, she said in that cool voice that means she's really annoyed. We're live and local now. It went on like that for a long time. Every time Ma put the phone down, it lit up again. Some people sounded happy, but a bunch of them were really furious. Finally, she turned away to start the next song, the light kept blinking, and I'd just had enough. I batted the handle down and hissed into it as loud as I could. Neptune! Ma picked me up and dumped me on the floor. I glared up at her. People are insulting my family. What am I supposed to do? Ryan, honey, why don't you take Neptune and go upstairs? You sure, Ma? My girl looked scared and angry. More angry. I got this. I'll ignore the phone if I have to. Ma misses a lot, but she's a good mom. Always protects my girl. So do I. With a glare at Ma, I rubbed my head against my girl's ankle and urged her upstairs. If I happened to encourage her to give me a few extra treats to help her feel better, well, that's my business. One of you stupid humans said everything looks better in the morning. You weren't there for the next morning at the radio station. My girl was at school, I was back in my window, and Ma was still fielding phone calls. If you're waiting for the rest of the staff to arrive, by the way, don't hold your breath. It's just us. Ma apparently has something called a satellite that keeps the screeching she calls music going when she's not in the basement. Whatever. Just as well we don't have anyone else running around in the middle of this mess. The good news was Ma had managed to replace the yelling with the screeching, so it was a net improvement. Until the rock came through the glass on the door. I saw a guy across the street, kinda skinny and scruffy, maybe a local, wearing grubby jeans and a rumpled shirt, which isn't unusual, and a Yankees cap, which is weird around here. These fools are crazy for the Red Sox, which is offensive to a cat from the Bronx, but never mind. I only realized what he was doing when I saw his arm come up. Crash! I jumped down from my window and went to check on Ma. She was standing there, staring. For a second I thought she might start crying. I'd only seen her do that once, after that guy said he wanted a divorce. Then, though, her jaw set, her eyes flashed, and she growled, "Son of a," as she picked up the phone. "Get away from the glass, Neptune." She moved to pick me up, but I glared at her. Did she really think I was dumb enough to get my paws slashed? I hopped up on the desk by the door. She petted me while she waited for the police. Not long, and worth the wait. A big black guy in a leather trench coat appeared at the door. Being a Bronx cat, I know NYPD when I see it, and he was, or had been. "Ms. Jordan," he asked as Ma opened the door. "It's Jay, Chief Orr. I take yoga with your wife Alicia." "Everybody knows everybody else around here," he smiled, and his face softened into friendliness. "It's George. And who's this?" The chief met my gaze with the direct respect of a good greeting among men. I liked this guy. "That's Neptune," Ma said, thankfully not petting me in front of an important visitor. "He's the boss cat." Bratton is the boss cat in our house. Chief held out his hand to me, and I sniffed. Bratton's a stand-up guy, too. I nudged his hand and accepted a pet. "All right," he said. "So, to note the obvious, somebody threw a rock through the door glass." "Yep," Ma said, her jaw tightening. He looked down at the rock and took a pencil out of his pocket, moving the thing around a little to look at the piece of paper that was stuck to it. "Who's Edwin Anger?" "The talk show I cut off last night." "Your rock thrower wants him back," he said, reaching in his pocket and pulling out a bag, then turning the rock to us as he held it. "We want Edwin Anger, !!!!!!!!!!, scrawled in black on a piece of lined paper taped to the rock. Direct, anyhow." "Well, at least they're clear," Ma said. Her voice wobbled a little, but she hung on. "Uh-huh." Chief cupped his fingers and the rock dropped into the bag. Slick. Easy to do when you have thumbs, though. "Did you get a look at the thrower?" He was talking to Ma. I growled a little. He flicked a glance at me, but that was all. "I was in the office," Ma said. "I didn't see anything." Chief sighed. "And I can't take this guy to a sketch artist, so we can't do much here." Yankees hat. Ma had been using a Yankees pen from her old job in New York a couple of days ago. I looked around. First good luck of the day. It was still on the desk. Chief and Ma were shaking their heads. I batted the pen. It almost hit the chief, and both of them jumped back a little. "Neptune! Bad kitty!" I glared at her. The chief picked up the pen. "Yankees? You a fan, big guy?" "Well, of course, but that's a different discussion." "He likes the Yankees and Sinatra," Ma said. "Sinatra?" My uncle was visiting one time, and we played some vintage stuff for him, and Neptune just loved it. Purred and practically wrapped himself around the speaker. Chief nodded to me. "Good taste." "Damn right." "Not now, though. Come on, back to the pen." I nudged his hand with my head, trying to move him toward it, but he thought I was being friendly and just gave me a scratch. "Bratton prefers smooth jazz." Perfectly valid choice, but completely beside the point. I looked up at him, willing him to understand. "Anyway," Chief said, "I'm not sure how much we can do here, but I'll keep my eyes open, and we'll hope for the best." Damn it. Even the smartest humans just aren't up to cat level. "Okay," Ma said, keeping her voice calm to hide her disappointment. "Thanks, Chief." "George." "Chief George." Ma is very respectful. It's one of her better qualities. He smiled, held his hand out for a shake. "Really, Jay, don't worry. This is a good town, and the people are basically decent. Hell, they've been terrific to Alicia and me, and we couldn't be more different than the old New Englanders." Ma managed to smile back. "Thanks. Do you need to call a repair person?" He nodded to the broken glass. "We know someone." Ma chuckled, and it was almost her usual wry tone. "Bet we know the same one." The second rock almost hit my girl. It smashed right through the window of Ma's office after school the next day. If my girl hadn't gone to get an eraser because she made a mistake on her math homework, it would have hit her. Same kind of rock, same "we want Edwin Danger!" exclamation point, had to be the same creep. Not that I'd seen him, because I was following my girl, hoping to get a treat. I suppose he could have hit me too, since I sit with her when she does homework. Ma was really upset, that shaky kind of quiet strong people get when they're at their limit. Chief was concerned and probably furious, but he hit it really well, except for a little twitch in the muscle by his jaw. My girl acted calm, but she picked me up and I let her. Even cuddled in and let her hold me like a baby while we talked to the chief. Desperate times and all. Ma tried to send her to the apartment upstairs, but she wasn't going anywhere. My girl is a stand-up guy, too. Chief advised Ma to install security cams, promised to send an extra patrol or two, and assured Ma that he was going to make sure she and my girl are safe. Gave me a pat and reminded me that he was counting on me to help, too. Damn right. And that was all fine, but not nearly enough. I'm sorry, Chief. There's only one way to end this, and only one cat for the job. 2 days later, I got my chance. I caught a glimpse of a familiar shape across the street between the cars zooming by. Kept looking. Sure enough, it was him. Yankees cap, same scruffy clothes, same sharp, skinny face. Only now I could see the hateful twist to his features. Feelings mutual, punk. As he turned toward the road, he looked at the window. I looked back, held his gaze. That's right, pal. I know who you are. Do you know who I am? His eyes were still on me as he stepped into the road. I have to figure I was the last thing he saw before the SUV hit him. Ma and I watched the accident scene from the window. She popped back and forth, trying to do work, but returning over and over to look at the police cars and the ambulance, and later the big black van. "So sad," she said to me one time, petting me and almost resting her head on mine, even though she had to know that was a big no-no. Could have been any of us. Well, no. After the black van and one of the police cars finally pulled away, Chief George turned away from the scene and turned for our door. "Looks like we got your rock thrower, Jay," Chief said as he walked inside. "Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to charge him." "Good Lord," Ma gasped. "That was him?" "Sure looks like it." "What the hell happened?" "Mowed down by one of those speeding tourists in an SUV." Chief shook his head. "Mrs. Chen at the mini-mart said the guy was looking at your window and not at the road when he stepped off the curb." "Getting ready to throw a rock?" she asked. "I guess. Or something in the window distracted him." Chief's brown eyes widened, and then he looked at me. I looked right back at him. Same cool gaze. He knew. An understanding among men. Sometimes you have to defend your family. Ma looked from Chief to me and back, then blinked, clearly dismissing whatever she was thinking. "So how do they know it was the rock thrower?" "The latest one was in his pocket when the SUV hit him. Longer note this time. Would have made an easy hate crime case." Ma nodded. "So, that's it, Jay." Chief patted her arm. "We're done here." "Yeah." She didn't sound convinced. "You worked in the city. You know most people like this are just loud, not dangerous." "You're right." Ma nodded and stood up a little straighter. "We'll get through it." Chief smiled and nodded to me. "And you've got this guy to defend you." Ma looked from him to me one more time. We both just gazed back at her. No need to say anything. "Okay then." Ma turned for her office. "How about I send you on your way with some fresh coffee?" "And don't forget a treat for the big guy," Chief said. "Stand up, guys. Stick together." That night, we were all in the studio again. My girl was reading, Ma was doing her show, and the phone was lighting up. A lot, but not crazy. This time, people seemed to be calling to ask for songs instead of calling us names. I'll take it. "This one's for you, Neptune," Ma said as she put in one of the shiny discs. My girl giggled. "We have the only cat who likes Sinatra." "Damn right I do. Old school stand-up guy, just like me." It was Summer Wind, not my favorite, my way, but Ma got close enough. My spot on the cabinet was nice and warm, and that classic knowing voice wrapped around all of us. Ma reached back and scratched my ears. Yeah, I started purring. She'd earned it. We might just make this crazy thing work.
And we're back. That was Don't Mess with the Boss Cat by Nikki Knight. If you like this story, you might want to check out Nikki's novel, Live, Local, and Dead, featuring Neptune's ma, Jay Jordan. Nikki's newest book, Wrong Poison, the first Grace the Hit Mom mystery, is due in July from Charade Media. Nikki said this about the inspiration for Neptune. "Merritt Kolb was my son's cat mom, the true alpha female in my husband's life, and my writing partner for the last 12 years. Neptune gets his loyalty and loving soul from her. Shortly before this story was accepted for CatsCast, Merritt died after a long and brave battle. She will live forever in our hearts and in every cat I write." I'm generally a fan of cozy mysteries, but most popular mystery series featuring cats have never quite worked for me. The cats in those stories tend to be sidekicks and not very cat-like. This story is different, though. Here, Neptune is the main character and has a strong, very understandable motivation. Today's cover art is a photo of Thunder, who, in addition to being a boss, was the best cat ever. For cat pictures, cat story recommendations, and more, follow CatsCast Pod on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you there or on the Escape Artist Discord server, Facebook, or Instagram. We'll be back next month, but in the meantime, you can find more narrative goodness on our weekly sister podcasts, Escape Pod for Science Fiction, Podcastle for fantasy, Pseudopod for horror, and Cast of Wonders for YA. Today's episode is brought to you by audio producers Wilson Fowley and Dave Robison, associate editors Kitty Sarkozy and Tarver Nova, and me, editor Laura Pearlman. Our opening and closing music is Easy Lemon by Kevin MacLeod. CatsCast is a production of the Escape Artists Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit. This episode is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License, which means you can't change it or sell it, but you can share it as much as you like. CatsCast relies on listener donations, so thank you so much if you've already donated. You can support us and all the other EA podcasts by donating via patreon.com/EA podcasts or through the website escapeartists.net. You can also help us out by leaving a review or rating at Apple Podcasts or wherever you normally leave those things. CatsCast is distributed monthly on the Escape Artists Premium content feed. A separate public CatsCast feed gets a subset of those episodes. More details can be found in the show notes or at escapeartists.net/CatsCast. Thanks for listening, and until next time, we wish you all the purrs.